Let's discuss with lawyers who worked inside the Trump White House, May Mailman and Jim Schultz, here with me tonight. May, as someone who worked in the White House counsel's office, what is it like for you to hear the new charges yesterday of a president attempting to delete surveillance footage?
Well, these charges are an ink blot test, I think, for most Americans. If you are inclined to think that Trump's a criminal, they definitely promote that. If you are inclined to think that the Department of Justice is partisan, you're immediately reminded of Hillary Clinton deleting 30,000 emails. And here we're just talking about surveillance, not the actual documents themselves. So it's not necessarily surprising to me. I guess I'm of the mind that there's probably another cooperating witness, and that's why they continue to charge. But I do think that there's one thing that I find maybe beneficial to Trump here, which is that the document that they're now charging, so this Iran war document, is something that he returned to the Department of Justice. And that, I think, was the most damning statement that he said that Jack Smith had, which is that he thought that that war document was classified. Well, it turns out he returned that classified document. I think that that opens up an argument that you could say that the remaining documents that he had, those were the ones that he thought that he declassified.
But he was also claiming that he didn't even have that document. He never used the defense that he had actually turned that document back over to the Justice Department. He was acting like it didn't exist and saying it was just bravado. But Jim, Trump's attorneys in this case, they kind of thought they knew what they were up against, what they were dealing with. But now, with the documents investigation, they are facing major charges. There's a new co-defendant. What is it like to be a Trump attorney who is waiting on one indictment, and then you get this put in your lap, another entire addition to that case?
Look, I tend to think that document, that 30-second document, is a real problem for the defense team. And I think it's a real problem because in that meeting, there were discussions going on about that document. And they're able to now go to witnesses and say, was that document present in that meeting? And whether the president claims it was classified or declassified or whatever it is, that's all going to get sorted out. But the bottom line is, if it wasn't declassified and he can't show that it was declassified and he was showing it to somebody he shouldn't have, and that person corroborates that testimony, that's a real problem for the former president.
Well, he acknowledges on that audio tape that it wasn't declassified. He's the one saying that. And of course, everyone has talked about not only the effort to retain the documents, but also transmission, showing it to other people. May, one thing that we have learned about this with this new co-defendant who has been added to this, Carlos de Oliveira, in this, the question of who is paying for his attorneys and a question of his loyalties, where Trump was telling others and calling Carlos himself to say that he would make sure he had an attorney here. What does that say to you?
Well, as much as I would like to think that there's some sort of altruism going on here, I really don't think that that's the case. Obviously, Trump has not paid for any of the defenses for January 6th defendants, which just really hurts my heart because these are people who had nothing and gave up everything for Trump. But I think that the reason behind paying for Carlos's attorney is, one, Carlos does not probably have the money for it. But two, you don't want Carlos to flip. He's your employee. He's been loyal. He's your guy. You guys have a good relationship. And by continuing to pay for his legal fees, I think that Trump can hopefully maintain that relationship.
Do you think Trump should have paid for the defense fees for rioters?
So I don't know whether he should have paid for all of their legal defense fees, but maybe bail. Something. Some of these people were just unable to make ends meet. Their families were unable to make ends meet. And he has called these people patriots. If you think that they're patriots, if they think that they're here for you, then you owe them something.
Yeah, that's also probably something to consider before you break into the Capitol.
Well,
we got to leave it there.
Yeah,
I don't think that. Go ahead, Jim.
I see. Going back to the point of paying for the legal fees, that's typical in a lot of situations where you have someone who can't afford counsel, people pay for counsel. But the important thing there is that the lawyer representing that individual is representing that individual's rights and representing the individual that he's representing in court, and not the interests of the folks paying the legal fees. That's the important point, and that's something that the rubber's going to hit the road on this as things start to clamp down on these witnesses or on Oliveira, and he's going to have to make some decisions.
May Mailman, Jim Schultz. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Galen.